okay, great, you're not ovulating, but is that maybe important for other things more than just conception? And the answer is yes. Yes. You can't, like the birth control pill is the one medicine we give to healthy people to stop a normal, biological, important function.
Today, I'm sitting with Chloe Skrlak, fertility awareness expert. We will be talking about birth control, cultural and political things around women's health, and we're going to finish it with what men need to know. So, Chloe, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
And before we get started, I'd also like to note that we are now in Women's History Month, which is very exciting. And this will be the first of a series of interviews that I'd like to do on women's health. So the first thing I'd like to ask you, which is just mind-boggling for me as the man, when I think about the wonder and mystery of women, is the phenomenon of menstrual synchronization. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I can talk a bit about it. So menstrual synchrony was first proposed in 1971 by a woman named Martha McClintock. I hope I'm pronouncing her name properly. Well, what she found was that women who lived together in their college dorms after some time started matching up their periods. And what she proposed was that it all had something to do with pheromones and the smell. Now, since then, we have lots of other research and other studies who have actually kind of debunked this myth, and now there's a lot of doubt around it. And so the opinions are divided about what we know are actually going on or what we think is happening. But what I can say very confidently is that women's menstrual cycles are definitely influenced by many things, by their environment, by the food they eat, stress, illness, and even light. So by light like the moon. And in fact, before we had all of this artificial light around us, that was another theory that women menstruated together because light affects their pituitary gland, which talks to their ovary. And so what happened was during the new moon, when it was dark, women would menstruate. And during the full moon, when it was light, women would ovulate. And so, of course, with all of us syncing up with the moon, we would begin to be flowing together.
Oh, interesting. So it wouldn't necessarily be that you're syncing together as a response to each other as much as all responding to this other phenomenon. That's interesting.
Well, it depends. So if you ask Martha, I think she's still pretty excited about these pheromones and women influence.
Yeah. Huh. So as far as why would that happen? That was going to be my follow-up question, but it sounds like if it's an entrainment to a natural cycle, then that would make sense. There's not any other kind of evolutionary advantage for women to be synchronized?
Well, I have read a few theories about it. So, for example, it would be beneficial if women were all synchronized and all conceived at the same time. Then if we all gave birth at the same time, then we would be sharing all of the resources. And as well, if for some reason a baby lost its primary mother, then we would have other mothers available for breastfeeding, which would give the baby a better chance. But then on the other side, I've read theories about how that wouldn't actually benefit us as a species to have all of the women syncing and cycling together for example, competitive reasons. So if we were all only, fertile during that 1 week all at the same time, and then of course, you have the one man trying to spread his seed or whatnot. So yeah, there's two sides to all that.
Okay, interesting. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is menstrual blood. So I was thinking about this, because there's like this conversation now coming up in my field around cervical mucus, and I saw some pictures, and it's like, and it just made me realize, like, mucus and blood, like I see plenty of that of myself all the time. And this is the interesting thing, is that, if you took a room full of men and you had them watch Ultimate Fighting, and these two dudes just beating the shit out of each other, and there's blood and cuts and all this stuff, no one would really think anything of that. But if you were to see a couple little spots, and you somehow knew that was menstrual blood, you'd want, like, that ew, gross. And it's not that it's one is not blood, or but it's like, where does it come from? What is the context of it? But it's still the same. It's still the same basically material. So then it leads into this other bigger picture of, why have we demonized women's processes compared to compared to all the other ways that we are exposed to mucus and blood?
First of all, if the sight of menstrual blood disgusts you, then stay off my Instagram. Oh, because it's all over there. It's menstrual blood, cervical mucus, arousal fluid. But to answer your question, there's a long history of menstruation being viewed as dirty. But like all blood, my opinion is that, menstrual blood is crucial for sustaining life. But here's the difference. Menstrual blood also has the power to create. And that powerful stuff scares people, I think. Yeah. And there's also a lot of ignorance around it. And I think that a lot of the ew comes from just the fear of unknowing and whatnot. But in fact, menstrual blood contains a lot of nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, which is why once a month I mix it with 10 parts of water and I put it in all of my houseplants. It's also the most abundant source of stem cells anywhere else in the body. And it's high in iron and electrolytes, which is why I actually also make it a ritual to drink it once a month. And it's also said to awaken spiritual centers, to be a way to honor yourself and your cycle and to reconnect with nature. And this is why I put it on my face and why I have a necklace with my menstrual blood in a vial.
So actually, it's funny you should bring that up, because I've heard of this practice. So do you notice a physical benefit, or is it more psychological to consume it? Like, as far as getting the nutrients back in?
I think both.
Like, is it like a superfood smoothie in the morning?
Honestly, I've read that the only kind of contradiction you have to be careful with consuming your menstrual blood is consuming too much iron, which is funny because for myself, I'm actually anemic and I need as much iron as I can get. And so I almost see myself as consuming my menstrual blood as synonymous to how a woman who just gives birth would benefit from eating placenta. Yeah. So, and here's another argument that I get a lot when I started sharing with people that I consume my menstrual blood, and it's like, ew, it's like, that's gross. Like it's cleaning, like it's you're detoxing, like it's gross. It's supposed to be coming out. But no, I see menstrual blood totally different than our bowel movements or urination, which are like elimination stuff. Menstrual blood, like, it grew in order to create something. Like, it was useful for something. And when fertilization didn't occur, when conception didn't occur, then we have to shed the lining in order for the whole cycle to start again. But yeah, for someone who does have this physical, problem of anemia, then drinking my blood is a great way to get some iron back in. But just emotionally, I felt regenerized. I had like this boost in energy, and I mean, like, people say to me all the time, like, "Okay, Chloe, no, I draw the line. Like, you do a lot of cool stuff. I'm support you. I draw the line there." And I always have to remind people that I'm like 7 years deep in this. Like, this journey started for me 7 years ago, and switching from, tampons to using a menstrual cup, where I actually got an opportunity to see my blood, to measure it, to collect it, and to touch it with my fingers, was the first shift from how I saw my own blood. And 7 years later, I'm drinking it. It's not like I just dumped into it, but how that's shifted the way I view myself, the relationship I have with myself, and as being a woman. I mean,
yeah, it's funny. Not that I have the opportunity to check my menstrual blood, but I did want to check to make sure that my kidneys were working properly. And the way that I was recommended was that you pee in a jar and you look at it, make sure there's little sediment and tissues and whatever. And so I did that for a while. I'm like, oh, my kidneys are not working properly. So I took some herbs and then now they're working fine, which is great. But then I was like, but it's so interesting to get that biofeedback, So even now they're working fine and everything's healthy, I still every now and then I'll just pee in the jar just to like check up on it, and just, like having that kind of feedback, I think is actually really important. I want to ask you, so something that I've noticed with a lot of women that I know that are, coming through their 20s and into their 30s and so forth, they're finding that hormonal birth control is actually really damaging for them. And, there's the clear argument that, well, yes, but it's better than having a baby. So the question is, what, how is hormonal birth control really that bad? And then what are the alternatives?
You know what hormonal birth control is really good at? It's really good at disconnecting the pituitary from your ovaries and stopping ovulation. It's really good at that, which is why it's such an effective birth control. Because if you're not ovulating, if you're not releasing an egg, then you can't get pregnant. Now, when a woman who is, has a fear, and, we've grown up in a society that, a man just looks at you the wrong way and you're pregnant. So this fear of getting pregnant, you hear about this, really effective pill you take once a day and that's not going to happen. That sounds awesome, right? But then the conversation piece that's being left out is that, okay, great, you're not ovulating, but is that maybe important for other things more than just conception? And the answer is yes. Yes. You can't, like the birth control pill is the one medicine we give to healthy people to stop a normal, biological, important function for women.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's surprising to me too. And yet I guess the fear of pregnancy is so great, or for a lot of women, if there's a religious component, having control over her fertility is so important that they're willing to compromise these other things that you're talking about, like their other safety and processes. So what do you see as being the viable option for taking control of your fertility?
Well, I'm biased because I'm a fertility awareness educator, but I think that the fertility awareness method is a great way for women to ovulate and to reap the benefits of their natural cycle and to prevent pregnancy with over a 99% effectiveness, which rivals the birth control pill and other hormonal.
So what does that mean exactly, fertility awareness method?
The fertility awareness method relies on women making daily accurate observations of their biological signs of fertility, and then using that information to identify when they're fertile and then abstaining during that fertile time. Okay.
So just so I know, or we can share with the viewers, what is the window of fertility versus non-fertility? How does that?
So there are 3 signs, 3 physical signs that you can read every single day, and it's not difficult, and you're probably already almost doing this. Cervical mucus, basal body temperature, and cervical position.
Mm.
And so you use these 3 signs of fertility as biofeedback, similar to how we talked about, menstrual blood and urine and the information this gives you to know when a woman is fertile or not. Now, the more data you collect, the more confident and the more accurate the method. But it's as simple as starting to pay attention to your cervical mucus. And when there's cervical mucus, you're fertile. And when there's not, you're not.
Okay. So again, I just out of curiosity, like what is the fertility, like how much in 1 month are you fertile?
Great question. Did you want to take a guess?
I think it's smaller than most people think. That I would guess it's about a week.
Okay, so this is what you need to know. When the egg leaves the ovary, it has less than 24 hours to be fertilized. So let's say a day. It has 1 day to be fertilized. The reason why women have a longer fertile period than 1 day is because cervical mucus allows sperm to live inside a woman's body. It actually lives in the cervix, so that when the egg is released, they can make their way up and fertilize the egg. The sperm can live in the cervix for up to 3 to 5 days. So combining the eggs 1 day and then the sperm's 5 days in the woman's body, we've got six days of fertility each cycle. Now, using the method, we tack on 3 more days at the end just to make sure that, yes, we're confirmed that the egg is released and that cervical mucus is not present anymore, and we've entered our infertile luteal phase. So it might give it a couple more days where women would actually abstain just in order to reap the most effectiveness of the method. But yeah, you're right, about a week.
Huh. Yeah, that doesn't seem like it should be hard to do. I mean, along the lines of being safe, because, for example, and this is kind of another topic, but men typically ejaculate too often, and it's very detrimental to our health. And so something that I've actually heard from is that taking the time during this period in your cycle to just like take a break from that physical experience and connect more emotionally, or just touching otherwise, or it can be really healthy. So using this period of time of your period sorry, had to make that joke, but it can be really healthy for relationships in general. What's one thing that men, like, if men knew this one thing about women or relating to women, it would make all of that easier. Dating or living together, or I don't know.
That's a great question. Oh, just to pick one thing. If I had to pick one thing, I would say I want men to know that women are actually 4 people, 4 different people in one. And that
I think we already know that.
Especially when it comes to relating to us, we're 4 different people in one, and that's because we have 4 phases of the menstrual cycle.
Okay.
Phase of that cycle comes with different characteristics, different hormones, different needs. Even our skills and strengths change throughout these 4 phases. And so getting to know the phases of a woman's menstrual cycle and appreciating how she changes through each phase, I think would definitely do the trick.
Well, I really appreciate you doing this interview with me. And for everyone, Chloe did this really awesome thing. It's 28 days of myth busting for, I don't know, was it just periods or just general fertility stuff? Really cool. I'll link that. Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.